beautiful to see you. So nice to be out here today. Let me not waste any time and show you the garden. Where's the camera turny roundy thing? There it is. They moved it. Look at this. It is spring. What else can I say? And the cherry tree is fantastic. And the wind is just perfect. Oh, and by the way, this is Oneness Evolving, standing in my front garden. And my husband, I think, well, I had a rough night, but he had a rough night and he's forgotten it's Wednesday. So he's still meditating, which means that I'm just going live out here and this will get shared out later. So I'm just going to show you the garden and then I'm going to tell you what I've been doing. And yeah, I'm just enjoying this. The sky is so perfectly blue. And then it's the best colour for seeing cherry blossom. And it's blowing in the wind and my arm's getting tired. But look at this. The cherry blossom and the magnolia, they always do this dance every year. Hello gorgeous being, it's great to see you. I'm just showing off the garden because it's so lovely out here. And I'm not going to be able to go inside into my lounge and talk about all the stuff that I have written today for God of Me because the lounge is busy. Hi Laurie, lovely to see you darling. We're going to stay out here today and hope that the construction noise next door doesn't start up again. Look at this. This is what this thing does. You cut it down. You see these? It's growing. It will be a mad thing again. And there's still so much to do here. It's blank because it needs to be. There's stuff I'm digging out. And it takes a while to get some things out. And look at this. Greenie's bonnet. It's such a perfect spring day to be showing you all of these flowers. Look inside. Come on, camera. Focus. There you go. It's just lovely. And you can see the bluebells are getting tall. Hello gorgeous beings, it is so nice to see you here. And you got to imagine these cineraria are not just fabulously purple, they smell nice. So imagine a sweet polleny smell. The bluebells are getting tall, they're starting to age, but they're still lovely. And the roses are coming up with all of their flowers. This is lovely. Oh my God, look at that. Look at that huge sprout at the back. That one got to be, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet tall before I pruned it down. And it's just a really powerful shoot, so that's going to be exciting. And this wonderful fuchsia, that. G'day Timothy, it has been yonks, and I'm delighted you've seen me, because I have no sharer today. He's still in the lounge meditating. I think he just, forgot what day it is. Which is fine, because you're here, and I'm blessed. And it's spring outside, so I'm doing the tour, and then I'm going to find myself a place to... I got too far away from the house and the Wi-Fi faded out. What do you know? So now I know I can't go there. And look, the Spiraxis, they got rained on. But let's zoom in really close on one that's fresh. Aren't they fabulous? I'll try and get my shadow off. So you can just imagine this bed was amazing. And it lasts for about a week, and then it does that. But now the cineraria are fabulous. So it's all happening out here. I did a bit of weeding in here over the weekend, but it needs more. But I think, hang on, find the camera turn aroundy thing. I'm going to stand here and march up and down my lawn. Hi Mike, it's lovely to see you. Look, I got my little list of songs. Because today, of course, it's Wednesday, and my Wednesday mornings I spend working on this crazy project that I have that I've called God of Me, because it's about being God of Me. We all want to choose, we all want to be free, whatever that means to us. We all want to have the ability, really, to change things in our lives that we want to be different. So how do you do that? And I really do need to find out when I started on this nutty thing. But I've been writing for at least a year, and I spent quite some time writing my own understanding of the science of emotional addiction and how we can get so stuck living a life that we don't like and actually get addicted to feeling crappy. And it isn't that we like it, but our bodies become very accustomed to it. It becomes what's called our homeostasis, our body's normal way of being. And so it's very hard to change because the body is used to its normal way of being and it doesn't want to change because it assumes that whatever's normal is best. However, if your normal's become miserable, then it isn't. But to your body it is until you change it. So, yeah, I wrote a lot about that because I wanted to really unpack it for you. And, you know, all of that's on YouTube. It's easier to find on YouTube than on Facebook, so that's cool. But what I'm doing now, and this has really become something that's kind of driving me from inside. It's a passion, it's a curiosity, it's an interest. This business of so-called miracles and people who change matter with mind and manifestation, which was kind of a thing that would make me want to basically barf because I couldn't do it, right? And how does that actually work? And it's all hooked up with how we think and how we feel, by the way. It's just that I've had to go back to the very fundamental nature of matter, which I've been learning about, and talk about that for a while. So that's what I've been doing. And I've talked about the structure of the atom. You know, you've got an atom, it's got a nucleus in the middle, and it's got electrons running around out the outside. And how does that work? And the fact that the protons and the neutrons in the nucleus, very, very, very small part of the space that's taken up by the atom has actually got matter in it. Everything else is space and electrostatic charge. And what I've been learning about more recently is that tiny piece of matter in the center of the atom, that's made up of something smaller that I didn't know about. They're called Planck spherical units because they were invented or discovered by Max Planck, who is one of the really clever people who was acknowledged as the father of quantum physics. So he discovered these things actually because he was trying to work out a way to have a better light bulb. And I'm not going to try and tell that story because I don't know it well enough. But that was what happened. And so 100 years later, a physicist called Nassim Haramein and his team have been putting some really amazing things together about these teeny tiny little spinning oscillators that are called Planck spherical units. And I've spent the last little while explaining just how small they are. I haven't yet told you how much energy there is in them. It's astronomical, literally. But the point is that Planck spherical units, if you have a Planck and you make it the size of a grain of sand, the size of the proton is from here to Alpha Centauri. That's really short version. Hi Anna, it's lovely to see you. Just noticed you joined. Yay. So that's pretty mind-blowing. And, you know, I went off on a tangent and thought, well, if the grain of sand is the Planck and the proton is from here to Alpha Centauri, then how big is the atom? And the atom is actually about 83% of the way across the Milky Way, and that blew my mind. Okay, so, and then I started wanting to, and I'm still, we'll get there, talk about, okay, well, if there's so little matter, because all of the space, right, and there's tiny bits of matter in it, well, what's in the space? And I want to explain that. But I realised that I'd missed something important. Because I talk about all these amazing scales, you know, a tiny piece of sand from here to Alpha Centauri and 83% of the Milky Way. Who cares? Why is that important? And meanwhile, I've been studying, right? Because I really have been studying. And I remembered something that I heard Nassim explain again, because I've been listening to Nassim lectures and thinking and reading and, you know. And this is the piece that I wrote about today. So if you've just spent 4 years and 134 days at light speed, which you can't actually do because you turn back into energy at that speed, but let's pretend that you can. You've just spent that long going from here to Alpha Centauri, and that's how big the proton is, right, compared to the grain of sand. Well, let's say that you turn around and you come home again because you wanna. But while you're doing that, something really unusual and improbable and frankly impossible happens. As you're flying, all the exhaust from your, well, there's no way this would work. But you just imagine that as you're flying, there's this big balloon. And it's a balloon that you know, it's circular, it's spherical, and as you fly, it's like one side of it is attached to the back end of your spacecraft, and the other side of it is attached to Alpha Centauri, and it doesn't melt, even though Alpha Centauri is a star. And as you fly, it gets to be as big as the space between you and Alpha Centauri. So you fly at light speed for another 4 years and 134 days and you're back at Earth. And now you have a really, 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 really big balloon. And yeah, it's so fascinating, Laurie. I love this information. It's really cool information. So that balloon, right, is now actually the size of the proton. Okay, so what? Remember that grain of sand that's the Planck spherical unit? Fill that whole spherical balloon with grains of sand. That's how many of those fit inside a proton. That is a truly mind-boggling number. I do not know what the number is, but NASA's worked it out. He's worked out a whole lot of stuff about how matter works, and that's what I've been learning. And I really do have to digest and think and revisit it and read it and listen and think some more. But it's amazing. So many grains of sand fit into a sphere that is the size from here to Alpha Centauri. That's a lot of Plancks inside one proton. Okay, but I'm finally getting to the point. Protons account for basically all of the matter in the universe. That's it. And you might think, but there's neutrons in the nucleus of every atom. That's true. But a neutron is pretty much a proton in disguise. That's something I learned. Because if you take a neutron away from a nucleus, as soon as it's away from a nucleus, it becomes a proton. It just gains a bit of charge and, or loses a bit of charge. No, it gains a bit of charge and whatever. It becomes a proton. So protons account for almost all of the mass in the universe, and those protons are all made up of those countless little bits of sand, PSUs. Okay, so that's the first important part of the point. The second really important part of the point, which there's so much to unpack here, is that those Planck spherical units are not made of anything that we can touch. They are energy. They are spinning little bits of electrostatic charge, and they are extremely energetic. There is so much energy in them, it's crazy. There's something I heard Nassim say, and I've got to go back and listen to the second half of that lecture again, because there was just, oh, wow, okay, and this is it'll be the third time I listened to it. Or I heard him say something because I had gone through these not calculations, but, brushing over calculations, shall we say. And he said something which struck me for the first time. Space that we think is empty is actually much more dense than matter. And we think matter is dense. It's heavy, lead, gold, whatever, dense. No. The most dense substance that we have on planet Earth, apparently, I've been told, is diamond. And he said that even if you take the carbon atoms and you imagine that they're like an orange, a diamond is a very strong lattice of carbon atoms. That's it. If you take those oranges, the space between two of the carbon atoms in diamond is equivalent to a football field, or is it 2 football fields? There's a lot of space, even in the most dense substance that we know. Space, on the other hand, is not empty, and it's got way more energy in it than any matter. So that did my head in, and one of these days I'll be able to explain that to you when I get more information. But right now, what I know is that everything that we think of as matter and solid is not matter and solid, it's energy, it's electrostatic charges that are spinning. And every single one of those teeny tiny Planck spherical units is actually like a pixel on a screen, except that it's a voxel because it's got volume and it contains information. And how does that information get organized? How does it get stored? How is it that the atoms that I'm walking through, that you can see, how is it that they know to be a flower or a tree or the sky or a piece of earth or my foot or a snail? How? There's information that tells the universe how to be. And, scientists have a problem with Nassim saying stuff like that because they think he's going to start talking about God. And he's not talking about God. He's talking about that fundamental pattern that you see in the galaxies and the snail and the plants and our lungs and the rivers and everywhere you look. The Fibonacci series, the patterns, the fractals are there. And that's the information that tells everything how to be. I'm being very simplistic right here. But this is what I'm starting to understand, that there is information. Energy carries information, right? I've started writing about this too. For example, you are listening to me on your phone or your screen or whatever in your headset, and there is a frequency that your internet comes to you on. It might come through Wi-Fi, it might come through a wire, but that frequency that comes through the wire or the Wi-Fi carries information, and your device decodes it into something that you can understand. The same with a radio or a television set, and also, by the way, the receptors on our cells. They get information and decode it too. Everything is information. And so, if information and pattern informs what matter is doing on this planet and in our bodies and in our lives, geez, do you think if we can change the information that we can maybe change matter and change our bodies and change our lives? By the way, people are doing it. They've done it. Not just little things, big things. And not just the saints in the past, because I started making a list of people who've done it. And of course, most people on the planet, one way or another, they know about Yeshua. I prefer his Hebrew name. Many people know him as Jesus. He really was a guy who did some pretty amazing things. And admittedly, nobody was there with a camera taking pictures at the time. But even if you say, okay, don't believe the Bible, that's fine. Because I've had my own moments of thinking, well, it's been translated and God knows literally how much it's been altered and all of that. There was a saint, there's a Tibetan yogi actually, called Milarepa, and he had an interesting life, which I probably don't have time to tell you about because I just read about him. He had a rough start. Well, he had an easy start, and then he had some really bad shit happen, and then he really didn't like what he'd done and who he'd become, and then he went through a massive process and became a saint. There you are. That's as much as I'm going to tell you. But one of the things that I know from reading Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural, is that there's an introduction to that book. And in the introduction, Greg Braden, that many of you will know, who's done a lot of research about ancient traditions and all of that stuff, he actually has been to the cave where Milarepa lived about 10,000 years ago. And there are all these handprints in the wall, not carved. Milarepa put his hand into the stone and left prints, and he did many of them to show his students that matter wasn't nearly as solid as we think it is. So this guy is real, he's documented. And then there's the book which kind of blew my mind recently, Autobiography of a Yogi, by Paramahansa Yogananda. And he grew up in India at the end of he was born at the end of 1800s, grew up in the early 1900s and did amazing things. And there were lots of Indian saints around, and he was just so fascinated with what they could do. And he wanted to find out. Hi, Jody! So he went and visited them, and he writes about all of these different saints, and some of them could be in two places at once, and quite a few of them could just move from here to there. They'd come into a room and they wouldn't use the door, they'd just appear, or they'd levitate, and people did get raised from the dead. And it's just like, and that was only 100 years ago. Excuse the banging. I think I'm going to see if I can go inside. My husband might be out of the lounge by now. So it suddenly occurred to me that maybe this stuff is actually real. And I have this curiosity. There we go, the lounge is open, I can go inside. I have this great curiosity to find out how it works. There we go. Silence at last. We did pretty well, actually. There's a construction site next door, and they're on lunch. It's just one of the neighbours has decided to use a sledgehammer on something, so give us an excuse to come inside. So this is what I've been writing about and what I've been thinking about, just getting myself organised here, and wanting to explain things, wanting to understand this for myself, never mind for you. And so, if those people could do that, there must be a law, there must be a way to do it. And the funny thing is, when you read their writings, they all said, you can do what I've done. It's not a big deal. I'm not a god. I'm not divine. I'm just a person. And I learned how to make this work. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, okay, but how? And, for many years, the thought in my mind then was, well, there's no one to teach me. Who do I know who can do that stuff? But what I've come to realise from listening and reading and, paying attention is, hi, Carrie Ann. Not that, but hi, Carrie. It's great to see you. Is that ultimately you can listen to a teacher, you can learn, you can do everything, learn from other people. But ultimately, there comes a point when everybody who wants to master themselves, be God or me, has to start figuring it out for themselves. And everywhere I look when I read the Masters, or when I read the Bible, or when I remember what I remember of the Bible, it's a very, very important thing. Basically, a long time ago, not a story I'm not going to tell, but it was a critical scripture that says, basically, you don't need anybody to tell you the truth. You can work it out for yourself. And so this is me saying, well, I have this curiosity and this interest, and there is it's like, I know that I've forgotten how to do this. And if those people could figure it out, well, maybe we can too, And if you understand that everything that we think is real is made up of these tiny plonk spherical units, and they're nothing more than rotating electrostatic energy, very, very fast, very, very energetic. And I'm beginning to understand that it's like, the unified field. It's a sea of those things. It's called Planck plasma. It's a plasma made of plonks. And plasma is this amazing stuff which is basically infinitely conductive to energy. It behaves like a fluid, so waves go through it. Hello, isn't a wave a frequency? And if you have waves going through a liquid, you get shapes, you get patterns. And if you have more than one wave coming from different directions, you get interference patterns, and those things start to stack up. And if you have an interference pattern in light, it's called a hologram. And maybe if we can change the information that we are emitting, although that's not actually true, but it kind of is and it kind of isn't, maybe if we can change the information that we are holding in the field, I'll say that, should we be able to change our hologram, the interference pattern of our life? Because everything's made of this Planck plasma that's fluid, that behaves like a fluid. And I know it's a lot to wrap your head around. It's taken me a long time just to understand, because I had to look it up for you last week, that a hologram is an interference pattern. And I'm starting to think, well, hang on, my brain creates, literally in matter, my brain creates waves. They're measurable. My heart creates waves too. Don't those two interfere? I'm sure they do. But you see where this rabbit hole goes. It goes to infinity. So really, it's like, when I say I really want to figure out how to be God or me, I mean it. This is just, I want to know. And I say that, and I think, I'm not speaking the truth. Because I know that I know, and I've forgotten. And so, I want to remember. And I don't care whether I never achieve it. I'm just curious. And thank you so much for joining me on the journey. Because who knows what we'll discover together. I'm looking forward to it. If you'd like to see more, join me on Patreon. There's plenty that's awesome just for people who follow for free. So do that if you wish to. It's a journey. We're on it together. And if you'd like to support me, there's more. You get inside insights. And those are from me, my journey, my experience. And they're pretty profound. And sometimes they're kind of, whoa. But yeah, if you'd like to check me out on Patreon, please do. There's a link underneath this post. If you're on YouTube, thank you so much for loving, watching, and subscribing. I appreciate you very much. To everybody, thank you so much. Big love. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.